Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly live immigration attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. It's great to be with all of you. I see we have some individuals who are joining us live. So please throw in the comments so we can kick us off here. Where are you at in the world? Where are you at in your immigration journey? And most importantly, how are you doing? I know the immigration process can be very stressful and overwhelming. And so I hope that you find this community a place where you can be uplifted and supported and find clarity in your journey. All right. So for those of you who are joining us here live, if you can throw that in the comments, where are you at in the world? Where are you at in your immigration journey? And most importantly, how are you doing? Yay, here we go. All right. You're in North Carolina. It's great to have you with us. Jim, it's it's Crawford, all right, and you are very welcome. I'm happy to be here with all of you. Yay, and Lisa, there we go. You're traveling home and passing through North Carolina right now. All right, well, good morning. I'm great to have you with us. And you live in Raleigh, and your husband is currently in Nigeria, and you submitted your petition June of this year. So you're uh, just embarking basically on your immigration journey, but you have a few months into that wait, so that's good. You're a few months closer to being together, so that's very exciting. Thank you for being with us, Betty. And you're in Canada, and you're waiting. Oh, you're still waiting for that opening for your visa interview. I know you asked about that last time. Some tips and tricks for scheduling that interview. So I hope you find an interview spot here very soon. I know that's always frustrating to have to keep checking, and you just want to get that interview scheduled. So hopefully that happens for you soon. All right. You're in Lincolnshire, UK. You're doing well. I'm really happy to hear that. And you just filed your I-130 last week. A lot of the I-130s being filed. That's really great news. Exciting. All right. Hi to you as well. Maria, good morning. Lovely to have you here. All right. And you're currently in South Carolina. All right. Well, everyone can go ahead and start throwing their questions in the queue. Before we dive into those questions, for those of you who are new, if this is your first live, welcome. We're really excited to have you. Our firm, Immigration for Couples, we are dedicated exclusively to helping couples across the nation and across the world and navigating the U.S. immigration process. And so we have tons of free resources, whether you're just starting out or in the middle of your immigration journey. Amazing Ria from our team. She's going to throw in the comments here in a minute a link as well to our free resource center. She's on it. She's already thrown that in there. I am streaming this live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. If you weren't able to join us live, please do a hashtag replay. Let me know where you're at in the world. Where are you at in your immigration journey? And what questions do you have about immigration? And then be sure to check out our free resource center. Our free resource center is very robust. I have a free webinar that goes over the different options that are available. You can also download a free chapter of my book here, Navigating Love and Immigration. This heart graphic here, those are some of the amazing couples my team and I have had the honor and privilege of guiding in their journeys. So there are helpful tips from them as well, but that's all on our free resource center. All right, so let's see, what are the questions that we have queued up here today? Ooh, this is a good question. Yay! Good morning, Reg and Claudia in Orlando, and you just received notification of your interview in Orlando. Yay! Super excited for you that the finish line is in sight. So that is wonderful news. Great to have you here with us, and we're super excited. We're all celebrating you. Thanks for the shout out on the book, Lisa. I appreciate it. You were a big supporter, so I appreciate that. All right. So this is a really good question about online virtual marriage. Are they considered valid for a USCIS purposes? So if you haven't heard of the Utah virtual marriages were created right before the pandemic. So serendipitous, so great that it was created before the pandemic. But there was someone in Utah who said, we really need to make the marriage process more streamlined and easier for individuals. And they made this virtual process and an online application, and you get married on Zoom on a virtual platform. So just like this, you're on video, right? And typically the couple is together on the same screen. Sometimes you might be in two different places, but the Utah virtual marriage allows you to get married virtually on Zoom. So it's a really great an invention, or a really great progress towards making marriage easier. And right before the pandemic, right, a lot of people used the Utah virtual marriage. Well, because it's such a new and novel way to get married, immigration for quite a few years now has not been sure exactly what to do or how to treat virtual marriages. Recently, though, immigration, USCIS came out with some additional policy and guidance that specifically speaks to virtual marriages. So the short answer is yes, you virtual marriages, they are considered a legally binding marriage so long as they're properly performed and are in compliance, and take all the steps that are required by Utah. Yes, they are recognized and considered valid. The part with Utah virtual marriages that can get a little bit more complex or nuanced and require some additional steps is when the couple is not together. So whenever I have couples who are exploring virtual marriage as an option for marriage, my recommendation is that they are always physically together in the same location for that virtual marriage. So typically on that same Zoom screen. And I actually interviewed an officiant, Reverend Heron. She's awesome. She's done hundreds, if not thousands, of marriages at this point. And Ria, maybe you could find that podcast, that interview, and throw that in there for anyone who's wanting to learn even more about virtual marriages. But basically, if the couple's not physically together for the wedding, if you're in two separate locations, so say in the United States and in another country for that ceremony, then it's a virtual marriage, but immigration also views it as what they call a proxy marriage. It's not exactly that. A proxy marriage is where you have someone stand in for you, but essentially, if you're not together, if you're in a physical place for that virtual ceremony, then immigration is going to require additional requirements. So that you have to be physically together after the wedding. You have to prove that that the ceremony was consummated. So to do that, they're not wanting like videos and anything like that, any proof that the marriage was consummated in that way. They just want to see that you were physically together at the ceremony. So yes, virtual marriages are considered valid by USCIS, but there can be those additional requirements if you weren't physically together. So I hope that helps answer your question, and that makes sense. All right. And I hope my connection's okay. I see it is just lagging just a little bit. So if everybody can hear me, if you give me a thumbs up or just a comment and let me know if everything's good on volume and video here. Okay. And Ria's throwing those the links into the virtual marriage. So I assume everyone can hear me okay. All right. So that was a really great question to kick us off. Let's see who's next. I just lost my place in the queue. Where did it go? Here we go. All right. So after filing the I-130 and receiving the your payment was applied to the following case notice, what happens next? Is it just wait to the next stage, or will there be any other updates? So yes, after you file the I-130, I assume you filed it online, just based on your comment. But once you filed it, then the next thing is they'll confirm that they received the payment, and then you'll also receive a receipt notice. And the receipt notice is a written or a paper confirmation, rather, that immigration has received your case and that you're in the queue. And yes, there is a long wait right now. So after that, then you're waiting. It does take about 15 to 17 months right now to get a decision on the petition, that very first step in the process. So it is a waiting game, but during that time, you can start working ahead, looking at the I'm not sure. I assume you're going through a spouse visa process. And so if you are, then you can look ahead at the National Visa Center and start collecting evidence in advance for that step. And you have to continue, collecting relationship evidence, because you will have to continue proving your relationship throughout your immigration journey. So yes, there is a decent wait, a long wait right now, but your case is filed. So you're one day closer, and that's exciting news. All right. Okay, that's great. So for you that you use the Utah marriage and that you were in person together. Yeah, that's usually the best way to go about it. All right. Here is a long question, so you have to give me a minute to Okay. Yes. Oh, that's awesome. So yes, you're doing the spouse visa and that you ordered the book and it's being delivered to the UK tomorrow. Oh, that's really exciting. All right. Well, thanks for the support, and I hope that that book will provide you with some much needed guidance. And we're really happy to have you in this community. Hopefully, we'll see you on a weekly basis, or as often as you're able to join, and keep us updated on your progress in your immigration journey. We're happy to have you here. Awesome. This is everybody telling me that you can hear me, that I'm not talking to myself. Good. Because I just kept freezing up here on my end. And I thought, oh no, come on, technology, cooperate. All right. Let's see who was next here. Oh yeah, this is a really this is a good comment question as well. So can I discuss the new statement about making social media accounts having to be public? Yes. So what you're talking about, and just so to catch everybody up, so we're all on the same page. When you're going through an immigration process, any immigration process, student visa, tourist visa, fiance visa, spouse visa, adjustment of status, immigration has always required that your social media be public, or for them it yes, set to public so they can review it. They've become more strict now about wanting your status on your social media accounts, Facebook, all of that, to be set to public. I was recently speaking with a panel of USCIS and consular officers, and we were discussing this policy. Basically, they're reiterating a policy that already existed. But they were saying that if the social media of those websites, if your social media sites rather, are not set to public, that they can send a request for evidence. They can ask you to make it public so they're able to view that. I've had a lot of conversations with clients about this, and I understand, you're going through an immigration process for many, many months, often a year plus, sometimes 2+ years. And there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to set your social media to public, because you want to protect yourself and you don't want the whole world to be able to see all of your social media accounts. So, I have to advise clients, USCI policy is that you have your social media accounts set to public. And, if you don't, we can get a request for evidence. They can ask at the interview. I've seen them do that in many interviews, where they will ask, the petitioner and the beneficiary at the interviews that happen in the United States, hey, pull out your phone and show me photos. They'll ask, what was your last trip? And then the person will say when their last trip was, and they'll say, okay, great, show me photos from that trip. And then they'll say, okay, great. It looks like you submitted some screenshots of your Facebook posts and things like that. How about you pull up your Facebook account and let me take a look at that? So they can do that, and they have done that as well during the interviews. But yes, they are requiring that social media accounts be set to public. And then I do know that, many individuals don't want to set their account to public. And so just be aware that if you don't, they can send you a request for evidence and ask you to set it to public, or they can ask you during the interview to show your social media accounts. And then they also, that panel of officers that I was that they were giving a presentation, and the immigration attorneys, we were all able to ask them questions. They also made a comment like, don't go in and just like try to delete posts and like clean up your social media history. I mean, it's really important to be, when you're going through an immigration process, to always be cognizant of what you're posting and liking and things like that on social media. But they said, we can tell, we know, like when things have been like deleted or you're trying to manipulate your social media. So it's a great question. It's a really dense topic that we could talk about for a long time. But yes, that is the policy, that you have your accounts set to public. Okay. That's great. So, Joshua, on November 5th, you and your wife went to the green card interview, and the officer approved your case in 20 minutes. So that's great. So congratulations. I know you have been following this group, and you've been part of this group for a while now. I know you had some nerves before your interview, so I'm really happy that this community has provided you with support. And thank you so much for sharing this positive news with everyone. Give everybody inspiration as they're going through their immigration journeys to be able to see that end in sight. But I do want to caution you that you do say in 2 years you'll be filing the I-90 form. If you received a conditional green card, the next step in your process is something called removal of conditions. Filing a renewal of your green card is one of the biggest mistakes that I see couples when they're doing their case on their own. And so I want to caution you that if and you have a 2-year conditional green card, it's not the I-90 form. All right. So I hope you're still here listening, and that you heed my advice and be very careful with that next step with removal of conditions. You can check out our free resource center. Ria will throw that link in the comments for removal of conditions so you can check out what that process looks like. Okay. But congratulations. That's really exciting. I know that probably feels like a huge, huge relief. All right. So you have a big question here, multiple parts. Let me go through it. When providing evidence of ongoing relationship, proof of 15 plus years living abroad together, how many documents should we aim to provide for each year as proof we receive mail at the same address? Here in Northern Ireland, there are not many things that we can both have together, like utilities, phone, car, but we do have a joint mortgage and presumably need to prove we live at the same address all this time. Okay, so uh, basically your question is how much evidence? So there's not a set amount of, like 8 pieces. It's going to really depend on each particular case and telling your love story, your unique love story to immigration. So when you've been together that long, that's great. You definitely want to memorialize and document that longevity of your relationship. So, and that's okay. If you don't have, joint bills together, if that's just not something that's available, not that you just have opted to not combine things, but it sounds like you have other things that show that commingling, that joint mortgage. That's really solid evidence. So any proof that shows that your relationship has been a relationship of 15 years, that you've been living together during that time, ideally something from each year is nice, and sometimes that can easily be done through photos, especially with the geolocation and dates. Having photos from every, a few photos from every single year since the start of your relationship is a really great way to document that longevity of your relationship. Let me see if it'll cooperate here. Well, it's not going to let me pull up the other part of your question. There it goes. So something from each year is nice. There's not a certain amount from each year that you have to provide, but like I said, there's certain pieces of evidence like photos or maybe messages or gifts and things like that that have been exchanged that you can provide something that covers that entire period of time. It's immigration has a very long list of red flags that they look for and in cases that signal whether they think it could be fraud. You've been together for 15 years. I'm sure you're not committing a fraud. I know you've been here, you've been on our lives before. I know you have a real relationship based on love, but immigration officers, they have these red flags. Some of the red flags, or in that list of red flags, is an under submission, not enough evidence. And then on the flip side is an over submission. So it's a Goldilocks standard is what I say, that you want to have just the right just the right amount. And so really just making sure you have something from every year is a really solid way to show that longevity. All right. But you don't have to do every single phone call and text message and photo from that 15 years. That would be a lot. That would be huge, a huge packet. All right, let's see. Oh, yes. Really? The officer said to file the I-90 form. Oh, yes. It's shocking, but not. I've been practicing immigration law for over a decade now. I've seen so many things, and immigration officers giving legal advice and being incorrect, it happens a lot. So, yes, if I would have been at the interview with you, I would have gently and politely reminded the officer that if an individual has a 2-year green card, that they should not file the I-90 renewal. So, yes, really. So I'm glad that you're here and you're welcome. Oh, bummer. And so you said there is a little glitch on the video on and off so far. Well, hopefully it hasn't impacted my message and at least everybody can still hear me. Yeah, the internet's given a little bit of a fuss today. So, all right, let's see where I'm at in the queue. A lot of great questions today. Okay. And then you have to renew your green card. Your marriage is going great. We don't have enough pictures because you're a truck driver, so I'm always on the road. Is that a problem? So pictures are a really important part of your immigration story. But so I when you say you don't have enough, I assume you have some. You definitely want to make sure you have some photos. If not, it does look suspicious, but that makes sense if you're on the road a lot. Um, I'm sure that you have other categories of evidence, so definitely include the photos that you do have, and then make sure that you're focusing on all of the categories of evidence, not just photos. Joint tax returns, joint bills, proof that you're living together, letters of support, friends and family. The list goes on. You'll want to make sure you have a very solid, robust set of evidence, even if you don't have a lot of photos. All right. Yes. So you want to know if your wife will need a driver's license before the interview. If an individual is able to obtain their driver's license before the adjustment of status interview, that's great, but it's not legally required. There's a lot of times where individuals aren't able to obtain that driver's license if they didn't receive a work permit or there's a lot of reasons why you might not have it. So if you don't have a driver's license, like it's not a reason to panic. That's okay. That can be pretty that can definitely happen. That's pretty normal. And then whether or not an interpreter will be needed at an interview, yes. If someone does not feel comfortable doing the entire interview in English, if there's any doubt about that, especially when there's nerves present, it's a really good idea to have an interpreter attend the interview with you. The interpreter will have to interpret the entire interview. So something that I always let clients know who they do speak English, they do understand a lot of English, but they just don't feel comfortable doing the entire interview in English. If you have an interpreter go, the entire interview or the interpreter and then the immigrant beneficiary, they'll have to do it in their preferred language in Spanish. So it can't be like a mix where some questions the person's responding in English and then others they're using the interpreter. So, but yes, that's a long answer to say yes. If an individual doesn't feel 100% confident doing the entire interview in English, then having an interpreter is a really really great idea. You want to go into that interview feeling confident and supported, and that is a really great way to make sure that you can understand everything and you're not going to have any additional nerves, right? So, all right. All right, I want to see. Yeah, and that's a really common question too. If you don't have a personal social media account, that's fine. If you're not active on social media, then that's okay. And if you just have the one for your business, that's fine too. You aren't required to have one, but if you do, it just has to be set to public. Okay. All right. So you said, okay, you're very welcome. You're trying to decide which of the 1,500 documents to provide. That's a lot. I would get it down to half, half of that. Most of our petitions are about 300 pages on average, and that's pretty standard. But that's not to say like that I would tell you to not include certain evidence to get it down to 300 pages. There's really no set number of pages. There's not really a set amount of documents to provide. It's just a matter of did you clearly and convincingly tell your love story? So 1,500 pages, that's amazing. You have plenty of evidence. Pick out the best, pick to make sure you're telling that story, and then just know that throughout your immigration journey, you're going to have to prove your relationship time and time again. So you'll have plenty of relationship evidence. All right, let me see. Where did I leave off? Okay, Rhea put in the links. Okay. So you had some follow-up questions about the virtual marriage. Yes, under the full faith and credit clause, um, yes, marriages in other states, as long as they were legally binding, can be recognized. The place that gets tricky is there are some states that have certain rules after divorce where you're not allowed to get remarried and after a certain period of time after that divorce. And so doing the virtual marriage in that location, it can become tricky. So if you're in a situation like that where there was a recent divorce, you can be running into issues in some cases where it might not be recognized in that state. So it's complex. It's immigration, it's law, it's complex. There's always an exception to an exception. But if you recently had a divorce or you have any concerns about the validity of that virtual marriage in your specific location, definitely speak with an immigration attorney. That's something that my team and we do as well. When we have a couple who's wanting to use the virtual marriage, we figure out and make sure they're going to actually be physically together. And then we find out where's that marriage occurring. For our clients who are in the Philippines, for example, if they're doing the virtual marriage, they have to register in the Philippines as well. So there are additional steps and nuances to be aware of, for sure. But in general, the Utah virtual marriage is a legally binding recognized marriage, but there are definitely other nuances that can make it more complex, for sure. So, all right. Let me see if Reg and Claudia, if they had any follow-up or anybody else had any follow-ups to what I've responded to so far. And I have a few more minutes. And I'll try to go through. Can someone who has a current felony or a misdemeanor charge petition for a spouse visa? Yes, and there are some cases where it can be more complex. So there's something called there's the Adam Walsh Act. And so in some I-130 or a spouse petition cases, if a person had certain criminal history, very egregious criminal history, such as, child molesting, abuse, things of that nature, they aren't able to just go and file the spouse visa. You have to show rehabilitation and a lot of other things. And in some cases, those individuals are not. And that all comes down to making sure that the immigrant beneficiary and children that may be coming with that immigrant beneficiary are protected. So it's a yes, and there are situations where they can't. So it's very nuanced. Okay. Sorry, there's questions coming through in 4 places, and I wanna make sure I'm not missing any. I'm doing the best I can to make sure because 'cause they're just, like, coming through a lot of different places, and I'm trying to don't wanna miss anybody. Um, good. Okay. So, Rudy, you're trying to figure out the location of entry of your last arrival. So there's something called an I-94 that you can look up. So just do CBP I-94 lookup, and it will tell you your date and place of entry. And that's typically what immigration is going to be using. Um, because you did a customs check. Yeah, that's always a unique one. For Dublin, you get to go through the I-94 you get to go through customs there, which is always nice. They have that in Aruba and other places too. I always like being able to do that and get customs out of the way and fly into the US. So I see what you're asking. So yeah, your I-94 is going to say Dublin, but it's not the US. So then you can just grab where was your first point of entry into the US and list that for your place of entry. Immigration officers should have experience with that and have seen that and understand. All right. Okay. Abby, yeah, you have there's a lot of Utah virtual marriage questions here today. And what I will reiterate is that Utah marriages are valid and every case every case has a lot of unique circumstances and the fact pattern, all of it has to be assessed to make sure it is valid in your particular case. When there's prior divorces and marriages and different locations and marriages being recognized, in some states or countries, and the process being different. And my point is, there's a lots of nuances, and it's really, really important to talk with an immigration attorney, an expert immigration attorney, and make sure that your particular facts in case that Utah virtual marriage, that everything you're doing is in alignment with the law. So you don't wait 17 plus months to find out, hey, it actually wasn't valid in your particular circumstance because of X, Y, and Z reasons. So I know we've had a lot of questions on virtual marriages, and I felt I needed to repeat that just to make sure that was really clear. And you're wanting to know, if you file the I-130 petition with a virtual marriage and you submit evidence of the consummation of the relationship later, like, would I recommend that? No. You always want to make sure, and when you're filing that petition, that you are eligible at the time of filing. So if consummation hasn't, this has actually happened. There's been situations that individuals have used the virtual marriage. They weren't together. They didn't comply with the consummation requirement until after the I-130 petition was filed. And so at the time of filing, they weren't eligible. So they wait 17 months to find out immigration says, hey, you didn't consummate this relationship. And they said, yeah, but I did, 4 weeks or a month or however many weeks after the petition was filed. And immigration says, we have to deny it because you weren't eligible at the time of filing. So then they'd have to start from the beginning. So absolutely, you want to make sure that the relationship has been consummated, that you meet all of the requirements, and that you are legally married at the time of filing. So that's a really great question. I'm glad you're asking that. Let's see. And then, given the current administration's immigration and policy, would you advise a green card holder to travel abroad at this time? So traveling on a green card, you're legally able to travel as a green card holder. It's one of the benefits. And there's always been certain circumstances where where travel has been more risky. And so I think the best way to answer this question, because it's a long response, is for Ria, could you find the travel on a green card YouTube video for Abby, and really for everybody to look at, anybody who's a green card holder. And I highly recommend you watch this video that I made. And I talk about, travel risks and how to be prepared, and understanding your rights. So when you're traveling. All right. So you're asking about a tax or an ITIN number. This is a great question for an accountant. So I had interviewed an accountant, would have been last year during tax time, and we talked about this particular question. And so the answer is, it depends. And this is outside of my zone of joy and expertise, and this really goes into the realm of an accountant. So definitely speak with an accountant about whether or not an ITIN can be obtained. Oh, Marlon, it's I'm glad to have you here. I love your photo. Yes, I remember you, and I'm really sorry to hear about your friend being detained by ICE, and they gave a court date for December 1st. Obtaining a bond right now is definitely very difficult. Your friend should look for immigration court attorneys in the city and state where they live. Maybe not the same city, but at least the same state. So I don't know where your friend is, but definitely have his family look for an immigration attorney who practices in immigration court specifically. And yes, that's really hard. Wishing your friend the best of luck, and hopefully you're able to find an attorney to help them soon. Okay. So your boyfriend, you're both in love. Well, that's a good place to start. Love is a good place to start, and you're deciding what's faster route to get married. He's a U.S. citizen, and for work reasons, he wants to stay in California. I would need a lot more information to be able to tell you what options exist. I'm not sure where you're living and what your goals are. There's a few different options that are available to couples. Not all couples are eligible for all options. So I would highly recommend that you check out my webinar, our free resource center. We had already put that link in there. But in that webinar, I talk about what are the most common options that are available to couples, the pros and cons of each option, to really give you clarity on what might be the best path for you. And you're always welcome, both of you, to schedule a consultation with me, and I'm happy to ask you questions and better understand your relationship and goals and give you advice. All right. All right, Lisa, you're very welcome. Have a safe travels, and we'll see you next week too. Oh, Maria, you're always so sweet. I love having you here every week. Any update for Zoom questions and answer for clients on the updates of what's going on with USCIS changes? Yeah, for all the information in this group. This is very helpful. You're very welcome. I hope you have a very wonderful day too. Yes, doing a client Zoom session with everybody to give updates is a really great idea. I appreciate that. We definitely should do that all again for sure. So something that I do for clients, and my team and I do for clients, is that we were having some Zoom sessions where we were all able to get together and talk about updates and what's happening in the world of immigration. I know it's very unnerving. There have been 400 policy changes in immigration alone since January. So a lot going on. Anna, you're very welcome. Good morning to you too. I hope everybody has a great week. I think I have one or two more questions. I'm going to try to do them quickly, and then I do need to go. I got to grab some lunch, and then I have a busy day ahead. All right. What's the chance of approval for an I-864 spouse visa using assets? I can't give an exact percentage of approval, but I can tell you it is more difficult to get an I-864 approved with assets. My team and I always provide a legal argument and do all of the math and really paint a picture about why these assets are strong assets, and why the individual should qualify on assets alone. So we always do that legal brief. We've been quite successful in getting them approved, but there are many times where we find ourselves, and we prepare clients for the possibility that we'll get in a paperwork ping pong with immigration where they'll say, yeah, we don't want to use assets. We need to see a joint sponsor. Sometimes people don't have a joint sponsor. And so there can be quite a bit of back and forth, making sure that immigration is really clear on the assets, but it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed, but it is possible. Excuse me. Yeah, Jim, that's a good question. And I had a client, we were talking about this too, where in Facebook, for example, you don't really set like your whole profile to public, I guess. Like certain posts, you can make them public or private. The immigration officers that I spoke with said all posts have to be made public. So do with that what you wish. But they're basically saying everything that's online that you're supposed to set that to public. And I know a lot of people have pictures of grandkids and kids in their family and things like that, and they don't want to set that to public, so they set it to private. So but they are saying that they want all posts set to public. So all right. Oh, so that's great. I know you've been waiting so long that your wife's final move to the United States will be in January. Um, and you received your wife's visa finally. That's exciting. Congratulations. I know you've been waiting a long time and you want to go to New York for Christmas. That's her first entry. You live in Houston. Will that cause problems? I mean, if an individual has received their spouse visa and they're entering the United States, you aren't required to enter in a certain location, just wherever your flight happens to go. And so if that's New York and you're visiting family, I don't see an issue, with that. They might have questions about why, she's flying into New York if you ultimately live in Houston, and be prepared to answer questions about that. But you're not legally required to use a certain port of entry. And I do have clients quite often that will go to a different state, visit friends and family, and then go to their final destination. So congratulations. And Maria's telling you congratulations too. So, all right, everyone. I know that some questions came in here last minute that I wasn't able to get to. I will be here next week, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It was great to be with everyone. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye, everyone.